Hello, this is the third devlog. I have not recorded slash posted anything about this since March 1st of 2024. It is December 20th of 2024. Since March 1st, I have had approximately 16 days worth of actual work that have happened in this game. Now, that may be technically more, and it may be technically less. To be fair, a lot has happened in my life since March 1st. I basically went from having no job to having a full time job that I love. But that's not what we're here for. We're here to talk about the game. So the last devlog was update 0.20, which is here. So before we look at the game or anything, which there's not going to be much to look at because visually it doesn't seem like much has changed. This video is just going to be me rambling, basically. But we're going to look at all these updates first. So we're going to start here. So this is funny considering this is the work day after I made the second devlog. Apparently I worked on path generation. I know my path generation was pretty broken, at least the one I worked on at this day. I'm not too sure why. Um, at the time, I don't recall if I was trying to make them like basically rooms and then do tiles. The way that the dungeons work right now is there's two sets of tiles. There's the temp tiles, which, if the name, as the name suggests, is hopefully temporary, but that's just a list of tiles. Those are actually the tiles that are like visible in the ground and like the walls. Then there's the actual like tiles, which is a 2D array, which is basically, it means it's a grid. But the thing is, that's all just what right now I'm calling void tiles, which once we get into the game in the dungeon, it's just the green tiles. That's just the solo color. Um, Currently, for some reason, like I said, it's temp for a reason. I can't convert the temp tiles into the grid system. It doesn't seem to like to. I've run into issues where it don't only does a couple of them, or it doesn't do them at all. Um, I found out that for some reason it works in converting all of them. Like if I have the 2D grid system and I start them all off as void tiles, and then I make um, whichever tiles in the temp system or in the temp tiles thing, I'll be like, okay, for every single temp tile for that X and Y value in the grid system, just make it nothing, which makes it just a blank nothing, which basically a black box. That works. I'm not too sure why. I believe end product, I definitely want it to be just this grid system because that makes it super easy. And then something I'm going to talk about a bit later in terms of the path generation, which actually does kind of work now, does still have some issues that I think would be resolved if we could fully work the grid system. Like I said, currently not completely working, but we're working on that. So then it looks like for 3 days, 3 or 4 days, I worked on reworking the dungeon class. Yes, because it was kind of recursive in the way it worked, and also the naming conventions I had were a little rough. So currently the dungeon class here, let's just go into not the dungeon state, but the dungeon. It's three different classes, so you can look at all the code if you want to. It's just a room. This is very basic. It's just left, which is where the left wall is, right, top, bottom. Width and height is actually, um, I believe it's inaccurate. I don't know why, but it is inaccurate. Don't worry about the plus ones. That's just for offsetting stuff. But then that's just a room. Um, uh, then this is B room, which is binary room. It's because we use BSP, binary search partitioning, I believe is what it's called, to make the actual dungeons. You should look that up if you're interested in it. It's very cool. But B rooms are they do inherit, I believe is the correct terminology. I don't remember the exact terminology, the coding terminology, but it is a room. But it also has stuff like min width, min height. I'm not going to go into how it works, but basically we start with one huge room, we split into a bunch of other rooms, and then that initial room at creates what's the leaf table, which is a global value. Um, and then what we actually use is the dungeon, which still has the parent room just because it's important to know the width, height, and stuff. The leaf table, which is just the global leaf table, but we have it in here, which it's randomized momentarily, so we can delete stuff, and then we sort it back. There's the temp tiles thing. Like I said, I'm working on fixing it. For now, this just creates a 2D array. Um, don't worry about stuff like that. But yeah, so it was reworked. Um, it is a lot better than it was then. So it looks like I took a little bit of a break and I worked on a demo sword. We're going to ignore that because that was not that good. Um, weapons are obviously super, super important. There's a lot of stuff that's super important outside of the dungeon state and inside of fight state. And just overall, that is what the game hopefully, you know, big part of the play, like gameplay loop is the dungeon state and the fight state. The fight state's like Summon Night. The dungeon state's like Pokemon Mystery Dungeon. Um, yeah. So character overhaul. I do believe I actually reverted this. I did just find some free sprites online to use. Didn't really like them. Began thinking about that's kind of a lame line. File cleanup, that has been a lot of what I've been doing. File cleanup's been really important. And then remove shadows. Yeah, in the fight, the shadows were they're just the way it's handled is a little silly. So I might have mentioned it, but this code is basically refactor code from the like Super Mario uh game in 50, whatever it was, like Stanford code stuff, and then I used that. Um, this is more recent. Trying to fix there's a jump inconsistency, and there's also an inconsistency in me being able to spell apparently. Um, between my PC and the laptop. I code both on my PC and my laptop. So basically, the way is if it's in Love 2D, and to make it so it's not frame dependent, we use delta time, so the change in time between frame updates, and that should theoretically make it not frame dependent. So like like if I'm on my PC, my jump should be as high as it is on my laptop, and vice versa. For some reason, the jump is not doing that. I haven't. I've only done a bit of an eye check, so I haven't done a full check. But it seems like it's only the jump that's an issue with. Um, but yeah, I'm not too sure why. To be fair, other stuff I've made, like in the GD50 stuff for like the Stanford class that I kind of did, I saw issues with this before with jumping in the Mario like code. There was an issue with that. There's some other issues, but it is what it is. Just something to note. So this is kind of useless. Just trying to fix some stuff. I should be more specific and began adding code for sprites for player attack. Again, this is basically completely undone, but worth noting. Um, file that needs changing for tracking code cleanup because my code was very messy and it was me trying to add stuff on top of something that was already a project that already wasn't optimal, stuff like that. So actually, let's look at files that need changing. So this was everything I had noted that needed to be done. You can pause this and look at it if you want to. Um, it was all done. I did eventually do all this. But yeah, it's just basically organizing it, making it easier for me to look at, for me to build upon, and then also, it kind of made me reinforce re-looking at the code and then making sure, oh yeah, that's how that works, stuff like that. Um, so kind of fixed jumping. That's not true. I did have another issue with jumping. But the two things that jump right now in the fight state are the character and the little slime. Their jumps were not being handled the same way, which they should be. So now they are. So that was what I'm talking about. I thought that was gonna fix the actual jumping issue, but it did not. And then also because I started the base of this code started from the Mario game, the fights were kind of like how Mario levels are, where they're tile based. They were very similar to that, and that was a bit of an issue because we were always checking, is there a tile here and stuff like that. And in the fights, we don't need tiles at all. We just need to know this is where this is the floor level. This is this. There's some Y offset for some flying characters and stuff like that. But yeah, it took me a while. Eventually, got that all out, which is really, really nice. Tiles are still being used for the dungeon. They're still going to be used for overworld, but they're not going to be used for the fights, as far as I'm aware. Then worked on files that need changing, so just this, all of this stuff, just moving stuff around, making it feel better, look better, stuff like that. And then graded paths that work. Work is questionable, but yes, they do work, which is very, very nice. And then we created dungeon walls and then made path tile set logic. Yeah, and then this is all stuff that I've been doing this week, basically. I'd say this stuff is what I've been doing this week. I had pneumonia the past 2 weeks, so I haven't worked at all this week, so that's why I've been really on top of this. So there's no promises that I'm going to be like going crazy with the game stuff, especially considering I still have full-time work, and then I'm also a student. But alas, so I made the tile set, and then we're going to look at this, and then working on character sprites. So we will look at these real quick, because I do, video games are a visual medium normally, and it's very easy to get stuck in the code stuff. And then like a lot of this reason why I felt so stuck in the game was like a lot of what I was working on wasn't visual, and I didn't have any visual representation of change. But there is now, which is always very nice. But some stuff I made was character sprites. So my own personal character sprites, not saying they're permanent, but definitely better. And then I also worked just a little bit on path logic again today. So first, let's look at these character sprites. So there's 3 character sprites. So first is, I believe I named this guy Elliot. He's just a little blue dude with a little bit of crazy hair. So there's just idle front, back, right, and left. These are just mirrored, but I'm not gonna have it and do mirroring in the actual game, or in the like. It's not gonna be handled in the code, because there's a chance I might want a character where one side is not a mirror, stuff like that. And then this is just walking. It's just handled in 2 frames. Maybe at some point it'll be different, change, but just for now, especially considering we're going tile by tile. So then this is him, but as a kid, because for the story, I believe we're going to have him be a kid at some point. Of course, that means he's smaller, not as much detail. Yeah, I don't hate it, especially if someone that doesn't make stuff like this. And then this is supposed to be, I believe, if the other guy's name is Elliot, this is Elijah, or if his other guy's name is Elijah, this is Elliot. Excuse me one moment. Sorry, I just had to cough. But yeah, so these are just sprites I have worked on. So now let's look at the actual game. We're not gonna look at this one. We're gonna open this up. So let's look. Of course, just the regular summon thing, and then now we go into a world. This is of course the same map. It's very similar to what we looked at before, but now there's an actual floor. There's an actual theme to it. I've ran into a new interesting issue where the character does not go completely off of tiles. So as you see, he's not on 4935, he's on 49.02, blah 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 blah. It's very annoying. I don't know why, but it's something I will fix eventually. I don't think it's a horrible issue. Yeah, I have an idea of how I want to fix it, but just something worth noting. Here, I'll do this. I'll just start at a new place. And this is another issue. So this is at the very bottom of the map. But even though this is the bottom of the map, we still have this like emptiness of nothingness, and I don't want that. And obviously I also don't want us to be able to go off the map. Stuff I have noted, stuff I want to fix, hopefully sooner rather than later. But yeah. So anyway, very, very similar, but as you can tell, now we have paths and stuff like that. Now, you may be like, oh, well, you have this nice little green border. Why isn't there a green border on this path? That is a good question. So when there's not a green border on a path, I know it's because it is what I'm calling an L path. that is when it cannot be a straight shot and it has to be an L shape. So as you can tell, this is an L path, and it goes into this room. Nice room, whatever, right? And then this is also going to be another L path. Seems like there's going to be a lot of L paths, unfortunately. So, and I'm not going to do my shift running because it actually seems to also break the game a little bit. But hopefully this next one will not be an L path. I don't think it is. Yes, so as you can tell, there's a hall right there with actual green borders. So yeah, so there is some, when it lines up perfectly, and then we actually can't go above this, which is good. But I don't want there to be a black void. That will be fixed hopefully eventually. And then of course there will be different tile sets for different maps, stuff like that. Where it's it's a work in progress. We need to make a dungeon that actually can exist and doesn't have any issues before we can make multiple ones. At least that's how I've been seeing it. Of course, making the tile sets is nice. That's why I'm doing it, because again, like I said, games are visual medium, and it can be really mentally taxing to have some working on something and just feel like it's not changing at all. But we out here. So then here's another little bug that I want to fix eventually, which, as I said, I've mentioned doing it as a 2D grid system instead of the way it is right now. So because it is going into this room on the very edge, it is still making this, okay, well, we need to have this top left of the vertical hall or vertical path be the top left thing. But with it being the top left thing, now it looks a little off here. So when we do eventually can make it a completely 2D like grid system, or just a grid system. Sorry, I'm so used to saying 2D array because that's like the programming term. Hopefully we should have logic where we don't do it similar, like we don't have to do it the way we're doing it now, where we do it with a hall, but we just do it. Hey, here are the floors. If this is a corner, do it this, stuff like that. Much simpler, and then it's actually it's more interesting logic. It's more fun logic, honestly. But with that, this shouldn't be an issue anymore. And of course, also, I won't be walking over this. But yeah. So then this is still good. And then this is going to be, yeah. Because they're not technically touching, this is going to be an L corridor. Yeah. Now, of course, maybe there should be more than just one path per room. Maybe there should be a path from this room to this room. Pretend there's a path here and I'm not just running nowhere at all. And then, of course, I did running, so now it's going to be a little off. Or that. Yeah. So then let's see. Let's run into this. Of course, we're still... This background obviously isn't accurate to the little thing, but again, we are working on it. That is just because it's just a basic background. It still moves, it still looks good. The jump is very high. The jump sound is also kind of obnoxious. These are also basic sprites that I want to eventually change. Obviously, the character sprite one I want to change. And then these sprites, the enemy sprites. And then also, this is supposed to be the stairs. So I've just been clicking X because I have it set to where I can just do that, just for testing it out. You see it runs into a funny little bug because of the way I have the logic handled. There's also a bug here where I can just get myself stuck in these. And it's really fun. So, and then also, of course, there's a chance the enemy spawns in the void because I just have him spawning that distance away. That's not how it's going to be. But, yeah, that's where I'm at right now. I really just wanted to record a video for myself, just so I had something to show for the work I've been doing. Yeah. Anyway, thanks for watching if you did. I hope you have a great rest of your day. Thank you. Bye-bye.